Welcome to our second teaching video on loving truth. The last time I promised I would mention the two other channels that we also have on YouTube. And I'll get to them as briefly as possible. But let us first review some of the key facts from our first video. Now, everybody believes something concerning politics, religion, life, parenting, and so forth. Which one of those views, however, is true? On this channel, we unashamedly claim that the Christian perspective is the only one that bears truth. Now, this is quite a statement, which needs, of course, backup. And that's exactly what we're trying to do right here. We're not saying that Christianity is true because of certain traditions, personal preferences, or opinions, or simply because of a certain person in authority said so. Instead, we claim that the truth of the Christian worldview is demonstrable and verifiable. For this, we subject the Christian worldview to 3 truth tests, or you could also say truth filters. And you'll remember the first one is logical consistency. Let's just take a simple example. Now, I have 3 guys here, 1, 2, and 3. Now let's say this guy has an IQ of 200. This one 150, and this one, poor him, 100. So I could say this one has a higher IQ than that one. And that one, of course, has a higher IQ than this one. Now, if I also claim that this guy has a higher IQ than the first one, of course, that would not logically be consistent. Everybody would see that quickly. Such a statement doesn't make any sense. Sometimes inconsistencies and contradictions are more difficult to spot. Either way, the various elements of our Christian worldview must add up to be true. Now, if the Christian worldview passes truth filter number 1, this is great, but it is not sufficient. The Christian worldview also has to be checked for what? Number 2, its empirical adequacy. What I believe as a Christian can either be proven by verifiable evidence, such as historical or scientific, for instance, or falsified if it lacks the necessary supporting facts and figures. Remember, my dear friend, that truth filters 1 and 2 are exactly the focus of this channel. What we do here is, you could say, nuts and bolts. It's no nonsense, plain vanilla. Roll up your sleeves and get dirty kind of work. We cut to the chase in terms of presenting the truth everyone is supposed to pursue. We focus here on the doctrinal side of it all. We dig up the evidence and provide a wealth of resources many people, believers and unbelievers alike, are seldom aware of. Now here we don't sell truth, but make it accessible, step by step, systematically, for all our viewers to see and to check things out for themselves. Biblically speaking, we apply a principle taken from the book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 11, which talks about the Bereans, a certain group of people, and their response to the teachings of the Apostle Paul. Let me read from the Scriptures. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the Scriptures daily, whether those things were so. Evidently, you don't have to commit intellectual suicide to be a Christian. You don't need to switch off your brain and to just believe. You'll be surprised to learn how many well-educated people are true believers in Jesus. This does not imply, though, that the Christian worldview is for the educated only. It's for everybody. What I'm getting at is that by all means it is possible to present the evidence, to let it speak for itself. That's why I stated emphatically in my last video that neither atheism nor agnosticism can be seriously held up in light of the facts. If someone really wants to know, and you might be one of them, if there is a God and who that God is, etc., the answers are readily available today more than ever, and more than ever before, due to the technological advances and global communications. And what if you are a believer already? Why go through all this hassle? Because as a believer, you are told to what? To be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. This is from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. The last time I mentioned the importance of understanding truth, acting on it, defending it, and of course teaching it. Now, I've had many conversations in my life concerning Christianity. Sometimes people ask me, sometimes I initiated the talk, and people then began to come up with questions. I noticed that I had to arm myself with truth in order to be able to communicate it effectively. Now, it has been a very rewarding experience, and a number of people were thus shown the truth and were eager to become wholehearted believers in Jesus Christ themselves. Again, this is something the Bible commands every believer anyway. Mark 16, verse 15 to 16 says, "And he," that is Jesus, "said unto them, Go ye into all the world, and preach the gospel to every creature." And in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, it says, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." The need for truth and truth found in you cannot be overstated. The Old Testament is in no way different from the teachings of the New Testament, by the way. Take, for example, the passage in Exodus chapter 18, verse 21, where Moses is instructed to select men to judge the people. It says, "Moreover, thou," that is Moses, "shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth." Now, moving on then, we have clarified some more the need and essence of the first two truth filters: logical consistency and empirical adequacy. Now remember, any worldview, the Christian worldview included, has to pass all three filters in order to be true. So let's stop at the third filter for a moment. As you know, this is about truth being experientially relevant. Again, a big word. Let's break it down again so that we can work with it. Truth is not just a matter of swallowing up facts and key information. It is something also that needs to connect to your own life. Is all of this that Christianity claims to be, even if the first two filters are passed, in any way relevant to your life? Does it really matter if you have a Christian worldview or any other one? Well, a lot of people tend to shrug off even the best evidence presented to them because they simply don't care. Culminating in the question, so what? Well, truth matters a great deal, whether in a court case to prove a person's innocence or in the life of two people living together. Did my wife cheat on me? Can quickly become an issue of a heated argument, even suicide or murder. This brings me to our second channel I wanted to highlight here also. It's called True Love. Here you can see the experiential relevance of truth, as evidenced and manifested in the lives of real down-to-earth people of different walks of life. It's about the devotional side of knowing God. Yes, my friend, you can experience God, and this in a very real, tangible way. You can know God beyond the shadow of any doubt. In the Christian worldview, truth never stands alone. It always comes together with love. Truth often hurts. That's why many people shy away from it. But If given and presented in love, it is a healthy remedy to a problem that cannot go unchecked. How does a person talk, work, live who has known God experientially? What is special about such a person? Is there any difference to any other person? Now here's the question. How does the experiential knowledge of God impact a person's life? In a nutshell, this channel called True Love shows you on a weekly basis what it means to live a radically changed life. The people you meet there have been touched by the love and truth of God in such a profound way that every area of their lives has been renewed. Their relationships with other people, whether at home or at work, their interests and passions, their lifestyle, their money management, the upbringing of their children, you name it. On that channel called True Love, you can see and hear the implications of what I stated in my last video. That is, finding the truth would totally transform your life. Now, you'll find more information on it in the description section. Now let me also quickly mention the third channel. This is a puppet show program for lambs. That means for little ones that must also get a chance to hear and see the truth. And it is done in a form that children can easily relate to. This program is presently broadcast in German, and we're working very hard on it to make it possible also in English. The feedback we've received so far, both from parents and children, is fantastic. It has been very encouraging. And the idea is to offer our children wholesome food for biblical literacy and for an opportunity to begin that very personal relationship with the God we worship in Jesus. Most children today, especially in this country of Germany, where we are located in the ministry, they are robbed of this kind of food and are therefore deprived of the possibility to make healthy choices for their own lives. This shall not be so. My friend, it's time to close now, but there are two options since we have basically exhausted our time frame for this video. I'm going to put a bonus part right on this one that you can either watch right now or tomorrow. This way, waiting for the next video to come out in 2 weeks might not be that hard. What is in this little bonus section as part of this video? Well, you see, when we talk about this experiential relevance, that means finding out how God really moves in somebody's life on an experience level. We'll show you videos on true love, but let's face it, you could say, those people's stories, they're not verifiable. I don't know these guys. I cannot really contact them. So, just to show you that we really mean what we say, we put two stories on this video that you can research, you can look up, and you'll see that what we put out here is the truth. All right, so either way, watch it now or watch it tomorrow. Be blessed and enjoy. Have you heard of a man called Clyde Thompson? Back in the 1930s, he was sentenced to death in the electric chair. He was only 17 then, which made him the youngest guy ever to be put to death in Texas up to that time. On the day of his execution, he had his last bath and was offered his last meal. Then, the miracle happened. The governor changed his sentence to life imprisonment. And yet, what seemed like a gift to him eventually became a nightmare for both him and those around him. How come? Well, the nightmare was such that he killed inmates as a result of a knife fight. Being kept in solitary confinement, he eventually asked for a Bible. Just like that, maybe smaller. Just to pass time and to prove that it was a book of contradictions. Well, to cut a long story short, he soon realized that what he read made perfect sense and provided the only sure foundation for lost mankind. The result? A totally changed life, from the inside out. He eventually left prison after 28 plus years, got married,
and counseled numerous so-called hopeless cases. He witnessed firsthand how one man after the other was turned around by God, completely and for good. Just for the record, this murderous story was captured in a book entitled The Meanest Man in Texas, written by Don Humphrey, a journalist. Now, perhaps some of you might say, my story, but this killer was probably totally uneducated and therefore easily fell for the fairy tales of the Bible. Well, I've got news for you. Many others have taken this book, and agreed with Clyde Thompson's conclusion that the Bible is actually the truth. Here's one such example. An award-winning investigative journalist and legal editor of the prestigious Chicago Tribune by the name of Lee Strobel thought it was a bit of a nuisance when his wife wholeheartedly became a believer in Jesus Christ. So what did he do? He set out on a journey to prove that the story about Jesus Christ and his ultimate resurrection was nothing but a myth. So he used all the professional tools he would normally employ in investigating a court case and was shocked to discover that the Bible was actually a true record that he no longer could dismiss as a figment of people's imaginations. In 1998, he published his findings in a book called The Case for Christ, a book I can highly recommend. So what should we make of all this? A convicted murderer surrendering to Jesus Christ and making him Lord over his life? A no-nonsense journalist who embraces the Bible as the Word of God? What's wrong with these guys? Have they gone crazy? Or could it be true that this very book and its main character, Jesus Christ, are not only still relevant, but actually of utmost importance to all of us, you and me, and for all eternity? There's no other way to find out than to roll up our sleeves and dig deep. That's what we endeavor to do here on this channel. So let's begin by talking about something that people usually want to do away with as quickly as possible. And that is the many miracles found in the Bible. After all, how can we take a book seriously if it's full of miracles, right? But wait, the two stories we just looked at, the one about Clyde Thompson and the one about Lee Strobel, they're miracles also. The lives of those two individuals, who really couldn't be more different anyway, were completely changed. And both attribute this to an encounter with the living God. And that's exactly what happened in many of the miraculous stories of the Bible too. People like Jacob, Paul, or Peter for that matter, had a one-on-one encounter with God and were so deeply and profoundly touched by it, no, by Him, that from that moment on, their lives became visibly changed for the better. And that's an understatement in every way. So instead of discrediting the Bible, let's take the miraculous stories of the precious Bible out of the dustbin. Dealing with God means you meet Him on the level where the supernatural is natural. This doesn't mean that we are to let go of our intellectual capacities. Instead, we simply begin to appreciate that God and the revelation He exposes us to in His book, the Bible, is a lot bigger than what the eye beholds. If we were to take the miraculous out of this book, we would be left with a rather ordinary book, one among many, which would hardly account for the fact that the Bible is the most published, most widely circulated book ever.